Alright, Super X here. Just got this killer Mark Bugs Chalice. Man, what an atomizer this is. If you've never had one before and you're just getting yours, you're going to be in for a real surprise. Look at this thing. This is the polished version. It's Run 3, Style 2, heavy stainless steel, metal drip tip. There's your base. It's pretty phenomenal little addy. If you look at the construction and details of it, it's unlike any other bottom feeding addy you've ever seen. Again, there's that drip tip, comes with it, perfect match for it. Then you've got the base of the atomizer itself. The screws are held in there by a little piece of wire that he ships with it. There I've got a coil built, tweezers, wire cutters, and a screwdriver. That's what you're going to need to build this. So what we're going to do first is to remove those screws. You just unscrew them and take out that little piece of wire, set your screws off to the side. That's what's holding it in because there's no threads in the post. The wire acts as the thread and the screw is like a tapered screw. These are proprietary, so you don't want to lose them. You can't go down to Home Depot or anywhere for that matter and get one. You're going to have to get them from Mark. So take care of your screws. So we're just going to remove those with a small flat screwdriver. Take out that little piece of wire in there and discard it. That's pretty much it. Now, we're going to put a coil on there. I've already built the coil for this because everyone knows how to wind a coil by now. If you've got a Chalice, chances are you know how to wind a coil. What you may not be familiar with is how to set up a Z-coil, which means a coil that runs perpendicular to the post rather than laying on one side. So I've wrapped mine. I've used my artistic wire coil gizmo. What you're going to need to pay attention to is how the wire comes off to load it in here properly. You want the wire to kind of be coming off the bottom of the coil. So when you wind it, if it's coming off the top, you're going to want to redo it because you want it to come off the bottom. That way you can position the coil properly and it mounts a lot easier. So you can see how, looking at that, the wire comes off the bottom. So if you want it the wrong way, just rewind it the opposite direction. It basically has to go with how you turn the wire and how you start it. So we're going to insert one side into one of the holes. Now, I've never made a Chalice video before, partially because you got to obstruct a lot of it when you're making the video. I thought of making them. I attempted to make one, but I said, I'm going to look so clumsy building this thing, especially with those old screws. These new screws are a major improvement. So there I've slid in one wire. You definitely want to keep your coil on a mandrel, some sort of jig, mold, rod when you're sticking it on. So I've stuck it in one, and now this is the unglamorous part, is getting this second wire in the hole. It's not the end of the world. It's easy to get done, but it just doesn't look as neat and clean on camera, staring at my hand there, as it does, for instance, sticking them into a side-loading RBA. But it's definitely worth the challenge of building it. You'll find it not to be much of a challenge, and you don't have to rebuild this atomizer that often. Once a month max. You might go longer than that. I typically wait about a month to rebuild. I'm going to grab a pair of needle nose now that I got that wire in. You're just going to pull this wire through those posts, through that hole in the post. And you're going to see your coil slowly. You're going to make sure the one stays in there that you already put in. As you're pulling this, you're going to see it's going to slowly pull your coil towards the center. Just little by little, you'll get it. You don't want to get crazy with it or you'll kind of unwind your coil. That's one thing about this type of coil. If you pull both leads opposing each other, you could pretty much unwind it. So there you go. That's getting to be right about where you want it to be. I try and use my mandrel. I just push it down onto the deck. Basically, the level of the deck is the level you want to push your rod down to. And there you go. Now we're going to put the screws in and make any minor little adjustments, which there really isn't many to make. You just want it centered between the posts, and you want the coil mass basically centered over the hole. You can make your adjustments up and down for throat hit if you choose, but I find the perfect place for my coil is when the rod is basically resting on the deck. So you're just going to put in a screw. And get your flat blade. Now if you were thinking to use anything like 28, 27, I wouldn't recommend it. I tried 28 on mine, which was partially what drove me to go to, well, not partially, it was 100% what drove me to try 29. And then I found I liked it on all my Addies because, again, those little screws grip the wire as the thread. And 29 was perfect. 28 was too thick, and I'm done with 30. I don't really have any use for 30. It's just too flimsy. 29 is perfect. You may get by with 28 if you wanted to force it. Maybe people have used it. But I'm not willing to force it because once you get a chalice and you realize how to set it up properly, you're not going to want to be without it. And if you were to mess it up, like over tightening it or whatever, I don't know how you'd mess one of these up. But if you did, it's going back to Romania, and I'm not going to be without mine because I wanted to use 28 and didn't get 29 or 30 or something higher if that's your style. But to me, 29 is perfect. So we're just getting the screws nice and snug. We're not going crazy with them and wrenching them down. We're just making them snug. Keeping that mandrel pushed down on the deck for optimum alignment. Checking the position of your coil. Again, the way you have to tighten this, I know I'm obstructing it, but all I'm really doing is tightening screws. There you go. Now we're looking at it for alignment, horizontal and vertical. Vertical alignment's easy. Push the mandrel on the deck. And your horizontal, you just want it to be between the posts, right between them. Observe how awesome the construction of this RBA is as you're doing this. That hole, that feed hole, you have no idea how a bottom fed Addy is supposed to drain and feed until you've used a chalice. I mean, it is just pretty much the best draining, best feeding RBA there is. You'll see here in a minute. So there you go. It's looking perfect. So now what we're going to do is trim these wire tails. I'll just trim them. In this case, for this video, you could trim them to the top of the screws, which is what I'll do. Oftentimes I'll trim them a little lower, but you just there's not a lot of room between the posts and the outside, like the rim or the cap. So you just want to ensure that there's no wire that's going to be stray and contacting your cap. So once we trim it, we'll just grab like our tweezers, push it up tight to the posts, give it a good look, and make sure you're golden on that. If you touch your cap or anything with the leads or the tails, you're going to short your mod, and that won't be what you're wanting to do. So there you go, looking good. Got it pushed up there nice. Now let's see where this thing weighs in. I'm thinking 1.2. What do you think? 1.2, 1.27, perfect. That's right about where I like to vape. I think that's a 9.5 wrap micro coil, around a 0.55 inch rod. I say 9.5 because the wire comes off it. Both tails come off on the bottom. So there you go. Let's slap this on a mod. For this purpose, I'm just going to use my Dibby. I'm going to run a Dibby because I already have a Chalice loaded on my killer awesome Rio Woodville here. And I've already retrofit the screws before I did this to make sure my screwdriver was perfect. But yeah, that is a slick setup. I got two rare mods, got two rare Addies. The mods and Addies complement each other. They vape amazing, they look amazing. There we go, a little fire action. It's firing great. What we're going to do is just cue up our mandrel and run it through there. This will take care of the hot legs. You don't have to squeeze your coil. That's like 15 minutes ago. If you're still squeezing your coil, you ain't using the right tools to build it. It's going to be tight when it comes off that jig. So I just cue it up. 8-ball corner pocket. Boom. Just one. Look at that. Game over. And I got downs on the next game too. So there you go. It's firing perfectly. Again, squeezing is out. That coil. Okay, let's slip into cotton here. Koh Gen Do cotton is where I've switched to. And I take one of the pads. There's 60 in a box, and I separate it in half. That gives you about the perfect thickness. Then I'm going to do is you're going to use scissors to work this cotton. It works so much better because the fibers are all long. They're long and they all run in one direction. So I'm just going to look at my coil and see that's about how wide a piece I need, and just think a tiny little bit wider. I'm going to hack me off a little piece with some nice sharp scissors. And that looks like about double what I need. So let me just cut that little piece in half. That's about double the width. And now I just hacked that little piece off there. Sorry I got that out of the camera. But I'll just take that little piece, and I'm basically going to wet my fingers, moisten them on a wet paper towel, and just twist the tip. I'm not going to go and twist this dense. There's long fibers running in one direction. You don't have to twist it up like you do with the CVS stuff. You just twist the tip and just slide it into the coil. And I am done with CVS. I love this stuff. It's awesome. Koh Gen Do. I got mine at Sephora.com. It's like 12 bucks for 60 pads. You can just pull it through your coil, and you'll see that it's making the perfect contact here. And no twisting. And you don't need tails on this wick. You're going to want to trim it as close as you can. Usually that's right at about deck level or deck width. There's no need to wick with this atomizer, or really any good bottom fed RBA, because the juice squonks up to the level you need to grab the wick. So to put your tails down in your deck beyond the minimum, you're just hurting yourself by doing that. There you go. That's it right there. And I just tuck them down so I can screw the cap on is really why. Now let's get to squonking this. Let me tell you what I was talking about. Look at the way the juice comes up into this RBA. You have never seen anything like that. Let me turn it here so you can see better. The juice goes out of there so fast. I mean, it's the perfect draining atomizer, the perfect feeding atomizer, and that's one place that this thing excels. There's nothing like it as far as draining and feeding goes. And you'll notice the vape. So let's hit it. Look at that. Getting crazy. Good stuff. Here we are about 10 minutes out of the box, and we are just going to be going nuts with this thing. So there you go. I'm going to go vape it. It's hopefully you'll be vaping yours really quick too. So Super X, getting after it here with my brand new Chalice. Thank Mark Bugs, and I will be seeing you guys around. Super X. See ya.